From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. On Friday, Latin American and Caribbean heads of state, as well as top officials, held the 21st Summit of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America, People's Trade Treaty, ALBA TCP in Havana. Cuba's President Miguel Díaz-Canel rejected the U.S. interference in Cuba's internal affairs and its deceitful maneuvers to divide Latin America. The President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, recalled ALBA's achievements in terms of regional cooperation in several fields under an equality premise. Other heads of state and top officials of member states also demanded a fair U.S. policy towards the region, especially Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, as well as condemned these nations' exclusion from the Summit of the Americas. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel made the opening remarks of the 21st Summit of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of the Americas, held this Friday in Havana. He recalled that ALBA, created by Cuba and Venezuela, sprung and has historical need from ideas of Bolívar and José Martí on revolutionary solidarity. Díaz-Canel also said that COVID-19 pandemic put all our countries to the test.
It is a united Latin America with a proper voice and articulated in the coordination of development and the defense of sovereignty appears to be essential. If we are fragmented, we can be ignored, but together no one can silence us. The development and potentials of the pharmaceutical industry in Cuba, which is a legacy of Fidel Castro, has enabled us to produce 3 vaccines with high levels of effectiveness.
And during his speech, President Maduro also spoke of a new and better times ahead for the countries of the region, thanks to the unity presented by the ALBA TCP member states. He also expressed that the sovereignty of the peoples must be respected.
Better times are approaching. New and better times come for the countries of the Caribbean and Latin America. And these times will arrive and will appear from these battles that we wage right here because we want our continent to be respected, because our countries need to be respected.
Bolivia's President Luis Arce denounced the exclusion of Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela from the Summit of the Americas and called for the unity of all countries of the region to face the current and future challenges of humanity.
The future for our America will depend in the ability for us to come together to face the great challenges that humanity faces: poverty, hunger, disequality, economic crisis, the great gap between rich and poor, sparked by the system that prioritizes the reproduction and production of capital before the reproduction of life, and is also creating a climate collapse without a point of return.
And during his speech at the 21st Summit of the Heads of State and Government of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America, People's Trade Treaty, Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega highlighted the essences of imperialism.
Imperialism has not changed. The essence of imperialism is there. Their essence is totally criminal. There are no frontiers for them. And in the meantime, they think that the time has come for establishing total hegemony of the American imperialism in the whole world.
And speaking through video conference, Dominica Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit addressed the members of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Americas, ALBA TCP, gathered in Havana. Skerrit made an overview of the importance of such entities as the ALBA TCP for channeling South-South solidarity, especially at difficult times like the COVID-19 pandemic. He particularly mentioned Cuba, China, and Venezuela, and he objected to having countries from the region excluded from the coming America Summit.
We have to face attempts to divide us. These attempts will not be successful. And we saw what happened in particular with COVID-19 in the Caribbean. We have to have in mind what we experiment during the pandemics. If it had not been for countries like Cuba and Venezuela, thousands of our citizens would have died.
During his intervention in the 21st summit of the ALBA TCP, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, stated that the regional organization supports the principles of inclusion and that the host of the Americas Summit, the United States, has no right to exclude any country.
ALBA TCP, in this declaration, reaffirms the principle of inclusion, that no country in the hemisphere should be excluded from the summit, and the host does not have the right to determine who attends or who doesn't. It has no right to invite whoever wants to attend and whoever does not want to attend. Apart from the fact that this is wrong,
the ALBA TCP Secretary General, Sasha Laurenti, read the final declaration of the organization's member states, in which they support multilateralism as a way of face regional problems and denounce the attempts of the United States to divide the region to benefit its own interests.
Reaffirm support to multilateralism as a main tool to face the diverse and complex challenges the world is going through a collective action. 4. We denounce pretensions of dominance by the U.S. over the peoples of Latin America and the Caribbean to maintain the region divided for their own interests.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. We are back. On Friday, Argentinian health authorities confirmed the detection of the second confirmed case of monkeypox. The Ministry of Health reported a second case of the disease in a Spanish citizen who was visiting the country, stating that there is no link with the first case detected. In this context, Ecuador and Bolivia registered respectively one suspected case of ape smallpox. At the same time, health officials from both countries are waiting for the results of the detection tests. The WHO said that 2 cases in Argentina are added to the 379 cases registered in the world. And the government of Guatemala announced that it will request the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, to cease its operations in the Central American nation. The president of Guatemala, Alejandro Giammattei, denounced the alleged plans of the government of Washington to remove him. The president pointed out that the Biden administration wants to introduce a multicultural agenda to the country, which he catalogued as indigenism. In this context, Giammattei demanded the exit of USAID for its interference in the internal affairs of the nation. The relationship between the 2 countries deteriorated after the re-election of the Attorney General Consuelo Porras by Giammattei's decision. Porras was sanctioned in September 2021 by the U.S., accused of obstructing justice in high-impact cases in the country. In Peru, leftist organizations denounced being victims of harassment by the National Directorate of Intelligence of the Ministry of the Interior. After a group of hackers managed to enter the computer system of the National Directorate of Intelligence of the Ministry of the Interior, it was discovered that the agency was monitoring several political leaders under suspicion of being terrorists. According to the data collected, these espionage actions were carried out on March 27, 2022, in relation to the first meeting of left-wing organizations. Specialists and leftist activists warn about the seriousness of this type of state intelligence operations, which includes government institutions.
What we have to say is that this goes beyond anything we could have imagined, because this does not only deal with leftist organizations, as we already suspected. In this information from the Intelligence Directorate of the Ministry of the Interior, there are public entities included. There are even spaces within the government itself, within the Ministry of Justice, the Division of Missing Persons, the Office of the People's Defender for activities that dealt precisely with the rights of the victims of the armed conflict, for example.
Former Peruvian congressperson and lawyer from Peru's Legal Defense Institute, Carlos Rivera, referred to the possible consequences of this type of intelligence operations against political organizations in the country.
The consequences this could have, right? Because let's say that the intelligence agencies prepare information, gather intelligence for some executive or political body to make decisions. They don't do it because it's their hobby. They do it because it is an important part of a more executive task. And here is where I am much more concerned, because this could mean some kind of legal act of repression on those people who are part of, lead or participate in this type of organizations.
Now we address other topics. Russian defense authorities urge World Health Organization, WHO, to investigate Washington-sponsored biolaboratories in Nigeria. The director of the Radiological, Chemical and Biological Defense Forces of the Russian Armed Forces, Igor Kirillov, warned that according to WHO reports, the West African variant of the simic smallpox pathogen came from Nigeria, where U.S.-sponsored biological laboratories are operating. Authorities noted that these laboratories were set up in the cities of Abidjan, Zaria, and Lagos. In this context, they stressed that there is a precedent of numerous cases of U.S. violations of biosafety requirements and negligent storage of pathogenic biomaterials, referring to recent allegations of the use of biolabs in Ukraine for the development of chemical and biological weapons. Russia's Federal Security Service identified 250 Ukrainian neo-Nazis trying to enter the country as refugees. Russian authorities reported that the neo-Nazis are trying to enter the Russian territory through the refugee programs. Officials noted that the flow of evacuation of refugees in the Donbass has increased, while security forces at the borders are keeping a thorough check to identify possible neo-Nazis. According to reports, more than 1 million Russian and Ukrainian citizens have been allowed to enter the Russian Federation as refugees. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. African leaders met on Saturday to discuss efforts to fight a growing extremist threat and push back against a recent round of military coups on the continent. The Summit on Terrorism and Unconstitutional Change is organized by the African Union and also is being hosted in Malabo, the capital of Equatorial Guinea. Delegates listened to addresses at Saturday's opening ceremony, was addressed by President Obiang, Angola's president, and by chairperson of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mohammed. After progress at promoting democracy, Africa has seen recent coups in Mali, Burkina Faso and Guinea, and military rule in Chad. A host of terror groups groups operate across the many countries, including the Islamic State group, Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, and Boko Haram. Mohammed called on African nations to make better use of their own troops in combating the terror threat facing Africa, and so reduce any dependency on forces from other continents.
While we have the means and the men necessary, African armies count, according to certain recent estimates of 2022, some 2.7 million men. Mobilizing just 1 or 2% of this force would give us the means necessary to reduce our dependence on foreign forces and to have a chance of success against terrorism.
According to the International Organization for Migration, up to 600 people attempting to reach Europe by sea from Tunisia and Libya have gone missing during the first 3 months of 2022. This is the highest figure recorded since 2014. The new record set in the first 3 months of 2022 paints a dire picture about tragedies messing off the North African coast, with no end in sight. In 2021, the International Organization for Migration estimated more than 1,000 people had drowned in the central Mediterranean while trying to reach European shores. In the latest tragedy, according to Tunisian authorities, a wooden boat carrying over 100 people capsized on Tuesday near the island of Kineka in southeastern Tunisia due to bad weather. The first Eurasian Economic Forum in the Kyrgyz capital of Bishkek concluded on Friday with the signing of 17 cooperation programs in different areas. In a press briefing, the spokesperson for the Eurasian Economic Commission, Iya Malkina, noted that the agreements reached include the transportation of agricultural products and foodstuffs, as well as accelerated rail transport of goods. She also pointed out that thanks to these projects, the first tons of agricultural products will be shipped from the Kyrgyz Republic to the Russian Federation. The event took place on 26 May with the participation of 25,000 union representatives from at least 25 countries, including Southeast Asia and Latin America. Russian Security Council Secretary Nikolai Patrushev said that over half of Afghanistan's population suffers of hunger. According to the official, 95% of the inhabitants suffer more or less from food shortages, while 55% face hunger. Patrushev warned that due to the situation in Afghanistan, there is a risk that the refugees will not only move to Iran and Pakistan, which receive more than 80% of the migrants, but also to Central Asian countries. Afghanistan plunged into chaos after the fall of President Ashraf Ghani on August 15th, when the Taliban movement seized power to end 2 decades of armed conflict with the U.S.-imposed government. On Friday, Kiribati and China pledged to enhance cooperation in building the Belt and Road, detailing that climate change and fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. While meeting with visiting Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, Kiribati President and Foreign Minister Taneri Maamu said the visit by the Chinese delegation brings mutual trust, friendship and cooperation, which bears milestone significance in the relations between Kiribati and China. Since the resumption of diplomatic relations between the two countries in September 2019, the cooperation yielded fruitful results, and the substantial improvement of the well-being of the Kiribati people were witnessed, according to the President Maamu. Kiribati is the second stop of Wang's tour to the South Pacific island nations after Solomon Islands. He will also visit Samoa, Fiji, Tonga, Vanuatu, and Papua New Guinea, as well as Timor-Leste. And now we address to other topics. Continuous torrential rains cause floods and trigger landslides on Thursday and Friday in South China's Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region and East China's Fujian province. The rain raised the water level of the Kianjiang River in the city of Guangxi. To ensure flood control, a total of 21 sluice gates were opened, and local Marine Bureau has implemented temporary water traffic control to prevent dangerous situations. The torrential rain also triggered a landslide in Wuping County in the Fujian's Longyan city on Friday, causing the collapse of a plant and burying some people at the scene. Rescue efforts are still going on. So we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.